Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is George Smith, and it is such a pleasure to be here tonight for the start of our second season of the GT4 Championship here on Racing Club International TV on YouTube. It's so good to be back, and joining me in the box tonight, a familiar voice, a friend of mine from across the continent, Sam. Take all right, Sam. Are you excited to do some racing tonight?
I'm very excited. It's one of my favorite tracks, so I'm looking forward to this. I'm told that GT4 is a little bit crazy, so this championship is going to be a little bit fun, maybe some bumps and bruises along the way, and I cannot wait to watch these drivers put their foot down.
You are not wrong on that. GT4 is so much fun to watch, so much fun to drive, and it looks like we've got a real treat here with a big grid as well. Often we find when we have mixed class events that drivers don't particularly always like to go into the GT4s. They're a little bit different to the GT3s, of course, but this time around we're going to get a massive grid filled with hope and expectation. Here at Imola, like you mentioned, one of the circuits that is traditionally very good to watch and very fun to race as we come into the closing phases of free practice before we go over to quali. Just to give you guys a little rundown on the format for tonight, we will be having a quali session which will then determine the grid for the two 30-minute sprint races that will take place. Of course, the drivers will be scored in both races, and both races will contribute to their overall point standings in the championship.
6 races, 6 weeks. I'm very excited about this. 2 races a day. So this is going to be it is a little bit of a marathon, right? You're going to have to perform well throughout. You want to get as many points on the board. What do you think is the plan here? Obviously to win, that's always the goal. But I'm sure, do you think the drivers are going to come out a little bit cautious today, just getting a feel for the grid? Or do you think it's going to be full speed from day one to try and get those podium finishes and as many points as they can, George?
I think traditionally when you do have 2-part race series in a single night, two 30-minute races here, it always kind of comes down to, the first race, you often see a little bit more of a safer approach, and the second race where drivers really try and make up for as many points as they may have lost in the first race. So I think it comes down to a little bit of a difference between the drivers, whether they're going to just go for a consistent run in both races or try to push themselves in both race 1 and 2. At the moment, though, with the free practice just ticking down, we can see that Thiago Lima is at the top of free practice as we jump on board with Joe McCauley in the front-running KTM. You know what, Thiago Lima last season, he did come out victorious, didn't he? He was our Season 1 champion.
He was our Season 1 champion, and I do want to speak about him and give him the attention he deserves. However, can we just talk about Macaulay's team name? Hashtag blame Mike Jones. I'm quite a fan of that team name.
I mean, I'm gonna be a fan of that day in, day out. I've seen a couple of blame Mike Jones team names coming up. I'm pretty sure Joe McCauley is behind all of those. Harry Conway in that Triple R beauty. I mean, you notice their liveries, they stand out. I always refer to them as the bubblegum flavored cars, but that light blue with the accents of pink, very big fan of the liveries that the Triple R boys run, and I'm pretty interested to see how the Triple R team does in this season. They've got a couple of talented drivers in there. Alan Garland here, currently sitting 3rd in free practice. We generally disregard the results of free practice because they don't really indicate what's going to happen in quali. Some guys might be sandbagging, some guys might be doing full fuel setups. It doesn't always indicate. But when you get to quali and you know that you're setting yourself up for not just one race, but 2, that quali is going to be so important for all the drivers out on track today.
That's going to be the big decision maker, of course. And to go back to your original conversation around Mr. Lima, Thiago Lima, I did jump over very quickly to Mike Jones, but he does need to get some attention because, like you said, last season or Season 1, he was our winner, and close on his heels as well, Martin Lawrence also finishing on the podium in 3rd. Both of them are on the grid today, so I'm pretty sure we're going to see some competition from them, and I think that Lima's probably going to want to be defending his title and maybe claiming Season 2 as well. So this will be an interesting one because I think right at the start, those will be the 2 cars that I'll be keeping an eye on. But of course, you never know. This is a very stacked grid, so we could see some surprises.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a whole bunch of re-entries coming in from season one, where guys obviously enjoyed the season and decided that they were going to throw their hat in the ring for season two. But also, on the same note, it's a bunch of new names signing up for it. So I think it's going to be a good race today. Imola, a nice way to start off the season. For us, Sam, this is at least a condition where we can actually see the drivers out on track. It's not too dark and there's not tons of rain. I don't want to give bad luck to perhaps that changing out into the next session when we go to quali. But for the end of free practice, it's a really nice day out there. 17 degrees on track, so not too hot, not going to be overcooking the tires. And as I say it, we're going to go over to our quali session. Drivers going to be getting out of the pits as quick as possible, trying to make use of that pretty short qualifying time, considering how many cars are on the grid. Just 15 minutes they've got to now go and shoot out and get their best lap time in.
You can see now we're on board with Thiago Lima, last season's winner. He is off. He wants to try and get, of course, you want that pole position. That's what he's going to be aiming for, get a really nice fast lap.
A little bit of lawn mowing going down, trying to just get a better run out of Tamburello and get himself ahead of the rest of the pack. I don't know if that was a strategic lawnmower run coming down, but Thiago definitely has given himself quite a lot of time to the drivers behind him for his first quali lap. And if he does this right and times it right, he will be our first time lap. Of course, leaving the pits, they've got this sort of lap now to just bring the tires up to temperature, get the brakes going, and then you're trying to give it your all for the next 2 laps after that and try and get a hot lap in. As the track develops during the quali sessions, you do see those lap times drop. So, it's not always going to be the best lap time that gets set out at the very start.
It's a very expensive lawnmower. I wouldn't mind one in my backyard. If I had a backyard, in those colors too, I think I'd take it, George.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely take a Porsche lawnmower if I could get one. I think I'd take a Porsche anything if I could get one. But a GT4 Cayman, certainly something on my bucket list. I would definitely treat it a little bit better as well.
I mean, at the time, I was trying to work out if he had done that on purpose to shave time or if it had been an error from his side, which is obviously why I let you jump in because you are a little bit more experienced. But it was an interesting move, an interesting start for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was anything strategic. I was just taking a little bit of fun out there. Generally, when I'm driving and I'm coming out, I'm trying to get all my heads set to the way I want them, check that I've loaded the right setup. Might not have been focusing on the track, but we'll jump on board with Thiago Lima now as he crosses the timing line, and this will be the start of his first flying lap. Let's us have it all look-see at Imola. He comes down into the Tamburello chicane. Very tricky corner to get right, especially alongside other drivers. Got to make sure you capitalize on that exit speed and make use of all the curbs and as wide as you can. And very good job coming out from Lima here to get the best out of it. Then he goes into Villeneuve chicane. Again, just got to carry speed. It's all about momentum here at Imola. Then on to the brakes for Tosa. Quite a sharp hairpin before you start the nice long uphill. A little bit blind as well before you come up to Piratella. As you see, he comes under those Audi Sport banners. Then onto the brakes immediately for this left-hander of Piratella. And this is where you then start the descent down into probably one of the most tricky parts of the circuit. Turn 11, 12, and 13. Acqui Minerali, difficult to do. In the dry, at least, you've got as much grip as you can. You've got to make sure that you don't invalidate with the track limits. And it looks like Lima doing that absolutely to the key. Then he comes into Alta chicane. Again, this is almost like a beeline, just straight over the apexes. You just got to use the curb to your advantage. These GT4s can do so. They've got a little bit more ground clearance to the GT3s, so you can really use some of those inside apexes before you come down into quite a tricky double left-hander, which of course is Ravazza, the second to last corner. The last corner here, more like a gradual right-hander and a very short lap coming round at Imola, but this will be Thiago Lima's first flying lap as he comes roaring down the pit straight, and I think he invalidated it, in fact, and he did, so it will be Nito that will jump up and set the first pole sitting time, a 149.662 coming out there for Miguel.
Well, I mean, I suppose now Lima knows the time that he needs to beat if he wants to be in pole position. So that is always a benefit as well. Now he knows how much faster he has to go, but he has to know that Nito is probably going to be going a little bit faster too.
Times will come in, times will fly. At the moment, looks like Miguel Nito doing a very nice banker lap, almost a second quicker than everybody behind him. It will be Chris Rubelar who slots himself into a temporary second place, separating the Porsches. Hilakalio will dump into third as Lawrence, like you predicted, Sam, he's going to start putting his name into the pole sitting positions from the get-go. He's going to come up and set a second place quali lap with a just 1 second slower than Nito. So certainly something from Nito coming out there that was quite special. I mean, considering it was his first out lap there, he has got a little bit of a jump on the rest of the grid.
It was a nice start for him. I'm sure he'll be quite happy. We're waiting now for Lima. Of course, his teammates, this is the two teammates that might be up at the top there. But I think that I said this last time when I was here with RCI, Martin Lawrence to me is such an incredible driver. I'm going to do like a bit of a weird fangirl now, but I've watched him so many times and he is so impressive, really. Like, I just think that he has the potential to really do well here. So I'm hoping for a faster lap from him because I wouldn't mind seeing him up there at the front battling it out.
No, that is something pretty special about Mr. Lawrence indeed. There's hardly a series that I seem to watch where he isn't taking part. So I feel like it's a good name to back. And to be honest, it's always good to see familiar faces coming through and setting some times. Rinza Cruzen in that number 81. He's going to slot himself into what will now be 7th place as Harry Conway jumps up into 3rd place in his quali time. Lawrence, Conway, maybe the two battling drivers to show Nito what's happening at the moment, though. They are not going quicker just yet. Nito, he's actually put himself into the pit box as he waits, maybe seeing the rest of the drivers coming out. Cruzen, he will jump up into second. He's now 9/10 behind Nito. Maybe that's going to be enough fire to send our pole sitter out to start trying to set a quicker lap. When you've got a second between you and second place, you kind of feel like, well, no need to really struggle, no need to push it. But as those times drop and those tenths start to get closer, it really does force you to now get onto your best foot. And Nito does exit the pits. Billy Octane, he's jumped up into the mix as well. Martin Smith here coming to the timing line. He's also looking good to improve on his time. Where does Smith go when he crosses over the line? No, he's going to stay down in 22nd place, but a beautiful livery on the Camaro. I think he jumped 1 position up there. But Sam, what do you feel of that color combo?
So I'm a little bit more biased towards the bubblegum blue and pink. I'm not going to lie, but I'd take it. I mean, I'd take any of these cars. I don't actually care about the colors. But yeah, for me, this right here, we're going to see it with Brian. The pink and blue accents. I'm really living up to the tech girl name now and going full girl here. These are my favorites. I have my own livery on an Aston Martin in these colors. Just going to say that. So that's kind of my vibe. George, yeah. I'm going super bright candy floss,
I do not blame you at all. I've said it from the get-go. I'm a big fan of the Triple R team and the liveries that they produce. And good to see Brian's also getting himself up into 11th place. Garland will come over the line to secure a temporary 3rd place in that number 5 Porsches. So it looks like some Porsches and BMWs making their way up towards the front of the order as a couple of drivers pull themselves back into the pit box. Of course, going to make some last-minute changes to those setups. They've now been able to see what the temperatures are like out for them. When we were in quali or in free practice, we were sitting at like 18 degrees on track. Now we're up to 22 degrees. So it's all these small little changes that drivers now have to adapt to and try and see if they can find a little bit more time. So they will be abandoning their laps as quick as they can, getting into the pit box so that they can go and do an out lap and get another time in. Only 6 minutes to go of this quali session. And like we said, only 15 minutes for all these cars to get out on track. Look how busy that track map is on the right-hand side of the screen.
It's super busy, and I'm kind of surprised as well. We're on board with Thiago Lima, who I mentioned we should watch him, and obviously George and I spoke about him being that season 1 winner. Not quite where he needs to be yet.
He needs to get this lap in. This could be what he needs now. He just has been struggling to actually get a lap in, but pushing and pushing. Ooh, jumps himself up to 6th there, Sam, but a little bit off the pace of pole.
Off the pace of pole, and I wonder if the track being a little bit busier now, he had that opportunity right at the start. Maybe he needed to do a little bit more, but so be it. I mean, at the end of the day, you race the race, and we've seen drivers be able to come from far on the grid right up to first place. But I don't know if he'll be happy with that. We won't know. We don't get a chance to speak to him. But it's now going to come down to some of these other races, trying to get these last laps in and seeing where they can finish and hopefully moving up the grid a little bit.
I mean, 28 drivers still in our timing screen at the moment. You can see everybody is getting closer and closer to their lap times. Maybe not on the same lap pace as the pole sitters or the top 10, but everybody within a couple of tenths of the next couple of cars in front of them. And it looks like Castle will jump himself up into the top 15 to start. McLaughlin here in his Aston Martin also looking to get a little bit better within the top 20. So not a bad place to start, but you always want to start better. He's been knocked down to 20th with cars in front, and he's going to slot himself into 16th. Luke Wigg in the Hint Racing number 49, currently sitting in 28th place. He's going to come down over the line. Not too many Audis being picked up, so good to still see some representation coming down. Joe McCauley, the Blame Mike Jones KTM Crossbow. These cars are just you either love them or you hate the look of them, and I don't know where I stand entirely on it.
I mean, I'll make a call. I quite like them. I think they're quite fun to look at.
Ooh, I mean, good old Joe getting it up into P10 temporarily. 3 minutes left on the clock. I think his accented livery there does do it a favor. But it's certainly not a car I would pick over a bunch of the other variants that you could choose from. But it's always nice to see a little bit of variety. So I like the fact that Joe McCauley has gone with something a little bit different to what the rest of the pack is doing.
It's just fun to add in that mix. And now we're on board with Martin Lawrence. Car number 171, Connection Lost Racing. He's sitting in 5th currently. He wants to get higher up, possibly closer to the top 3, no doubt, so that he can start off right at the front. You always want that nice and open track. So this is what we're going to be watching now to see if he's able to improve on that time and maybe move himself up a little bit.
I mean, Miguel Nito is also, sitting in pole position at the moment. He finished in 27th place at the end of season 1. As far as I can remember, did he? Or I think he finished in 27th. He's currently in pole here, so he's been putting some practice in. Jesperi Helicalio, he's going to cross the line with the 150.8, and that's going to give him an 11th place start. Still a bunch of cars out on the circuit. Too late to call. You can just see how intense the pressure is in this quali session, and drivers are dropping times like it's hot. I mean, you really cannot predict what's going to happen. I think maybe below Nito, it's all for a shuffle, but no one has really been able to give our pole sitter much of a challenge today.
Not much of a challenge, which is interesting. I'm busy watching the timers now because, of course, this is the final opportunities. I mentioned Lawrence earlier. He'd slowed down for that lap, but I'm pretty sure he's going to try to speed it up a little bit now. In the hope that he can move up a little bit higher. But we're back with the Phoenix Racing team. They've got a lot of cars in this race, lots of drivers as well. What do you think is the benefit of that when you've got lots of your teammates with you on the track, George?
Well, I mean, Consacao, what a great lap that was for him. Slots himself up into 5th place. I think when you do have a bunch of teams and drivers all together, you're kind of at an advantage when it comes to the benefits of being able to predict things out on the circuit. You know, if you little tap coming out there, Alan Garland has had a little bit of a mistimed re-entry after Tamburello and just gets tagged out, and that's going to send him back into the pit box. But yeah, Sam, going back to that question about drivers in teams out on the circuit, you generally spend time practicing with them. You generally spend time racing with them. That means it's one less variable into dealing with a driver you're not certain how they handle themselves out on the circuit. So if you know that your teammate likes to have big sends, if he's on the inside line, you're going to yield and give him a little bit more space out so that you don't end both your races. When it comes to racing on a grid with new drivers, you kind of have to spend a couple of races just learning the racing style of the drivers around you.
So we're back on board with me. So I just need to confirm, did he improve on his time there?
He did.
He did. So he got an even faster time. No one's come close to him. But you can see there that the top 10 is like really mixed up now as the last few now seconds of qualifying tick down. We've had a really big mix up towards the end here. While George and I were talking, you just saw everyone change it up and change around. So this is going to be quite exciting. I think we're getting a little taste of what to expect of very, very fast races for tonight. Lots of chaos and I think a lot of fighting to get on the podium.
32 GT4 cars are going to take to the grid as the quali session officially ends on the time. If you are out on the circuit and able to still set a lap, your lap will count until you complete, unless you invalidate it with those track limits. Chris Rubelar here for the Performance Racing team, the number 17 Audi. They are going to cross the line. They do improve their time, and they do improve slightly. Joe McCauley, is he going to be able to better his time? That KTM crossbow, we saw it jump up into the top 10 at some point during quali, and currently finds himself sitting in 13. So just outside that top 10 as he comes down into Ravazza, and we'll be able to see what he does. I love this onboard front splitter cam. Really gets to show the curbs, the changes in gradient of the racing circuit as he makes a dive down to the line. Now Joe McCauley will, where does he go? Oh, up into P2. What a lap coming out for the KTM crossbow. It was almost like I said, I didn't like the look of it, and he's gone and put himself up there. But Carsten immediately responds, so we get a Porsche 1-2 up at the front with Joe McCauley in that KTM temporarily wrapping up the third podium position for the start of the race. Thiago Lima, the championship winner from season 1, finds himself in a similar position to where McCauley was. He's now down in P13, out through Ravazza and on to the start-finish straight. Where does the 101 Porsche for Phoenix Racing Portugal put himself? This is going to be interesting. He wants to have a good lap. I think he's been struggling slightly. Does jump up and gets himself into P5, Sam.
P5, not so bad. His teammate, Concecal, he just pushed himself up into that second spot with a very quick lap there at the end. So there you go. A lot of shakeups right there. And that pushes Martin Lawrence, the one that I said to watch, that third place finish in season 1. He's moved out of the top 10. So this is going to be very interesting. I think towards the end there, we really saw what to expect. Some of these drivers suddenly became fast when the pressure was on, and I can't wait to see them now as we move into race number 1, George.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with these kind of quali laps. You've got a short amount of time, but plenty of cars out on the circuit to get additional grip and warmth into the circuit. So you do find those times dropping, and it was a complete surprise coming into the end. You wouldn't have been able to just predict that top 10 from the start of the quali session. And now these drivers, it's time to reset, have themselves a little bit of mental prepared thought processes into how they're going to handle the start. Like I said, 30 GT4s coming into that Tamburello chicane is going to be intense. If you're forced into the wrong position, you can impact your run all the way down to Villeneuve, and that really does impact your run down to Tosa. So there's a lot of thought process that needs to go into the start, and you can certainly lose the race in the first 3 minutes. You're not going to win it there, and it does require some head-on-shoulders racing.
What is the best way to attack this one with that many cars in the grid, that many coming into the first turn with you? What would be your mode of attack, George?
I think it all depends on how you get that start. Of course, they come in with that rolling start. So if you are caught sleeping on the start, you're going to have to take a little bit of a simpler, more laid-back approach. But if you do get the gun, then I guess it's about putting yourself onto the inside or left side of Tamburello. Make sure that you've got the exit against everybody else. And I mean, I'm glad that I get to sit in the comfort of the commentary booth for this one. Don't have to put myself up against some of the very best in the GT4 class. So many talented names, so many talented drivers. I think it's going to be an absolute cracker of a race. Our drivers have set themselves up onto the start. Is that a little bit of a damp track there, Sam?
It is a little bit of a damp track, and I kind of expected it. Every time I jump in here with RCI, there is rain. I don't think I've ever had a sunny day in the commentator's box. Of course this had to happen. It's going to be rainy on Imola for the GT4 championship. Boom. Chaos ensues.
Oof, I mean, Imola is just going to, it seems to be our rain circuit together, Sam, and this is going to add a definite spanner into the works. Hopefully all the drivers here have got themselves a prepared wet setup. You've done practice and quali in the dry, not too hot, but coming into the rain, that's going to add a definite curveball. Now it's all about making sure that you can get to that checkered flag at the end of race one. You can't afford to push too hard, especially at the start of the race whilst everything is cooled down and not up to temperature. And at the same time, you got to hope that there's enough wetness on the track that it's going to make those wet tires worthwhile. Nothing worse than being in between needing wets and dries, with them cooking up because there's not enough standing water. You then have to change the way that you race, different racing lines, different approaches. I think this is going to be an absolute cracker. I'm glad that the heavens have opened up, because I think that adds an element of surprise into predicting what's going to happen here tonight.
Definitely an element of surprise. I'm quite surprised by the fact that our team up the front there, they've got the first and second spot on the grid, Nato and Consecao. Of course, Thiago Lima sitting in sixth place as well. I'm pretty sure the Portuguese team is going to be pretty happy with that. That should lead to quite a good start. I mean, all three of those races sitting in the top six. That's always nice for a team as well. I'm sure they're going to like that. But of course, Carsten, Macaulay, we saw them during qualifiers. They are very fast as well. And, you know, just because you're not in the top 10 doesn't mean that you can't make a play for it. So many drivers to keep an eye on. It's going to be pretty insane keeping track of all of these cars. But thank goodness I have George's heavy shoulders to lean on.
I love the fact that we've got some Porsches up at the front of the start of this race. I mean, I'm not sure how that's going to end in the rain, but as things start out, always good to see my favorite manufacturer up there and representing. I like that Joe Macaulay got to go and slot his KTM there as well in between some of the BMWs, so you can definitely see a little bit of a manufacturer preference coming out into this as our drivers start to peel themselves away to start their formation lap. And of course, we will be going with that rolling start, as is tradition in these tin tops. Lovely drone camera work coming out from Stewie. And this is what we want to see. All these GT4s lined up, ready to go, sleeping on the grid. Some of them, as other drivers will take off, but it doesn't matter. They will all get into formation before they begin the race here, as we jump on board with that rear wing of Miguel Nieto, a pole sitter here at Imola. And what a cracking lap he had ahead of the rest of them. I think at the end of it all, there's about 6/10 between himself and second place. Consecao did get up there to start to challenge it in that number 29. And then Alexander Carsten a little bit off the pace of the two in front of him. But we talked about it when we saw the rain in the comms box. It really doesn't matter what happened in quali. Now, with the race coming down, it's anybody's game.
How do you deal with the rain on this particular track, George? What would you say is the go-to for a lot of these drivers? What is their way of attacking this?
I think it's driving in the rain is driver preference. You either enjoy it or you hate it. And if you so happen to enjoy it and you find that you've got a little bit of a niche over everybody else, you'll see these conditions and be smiling inside. You might have been off the pace in the dry. You see this, and you completely change it. Or on the other end of that coin, you see this and you know that this just limits the way that you can attack things. Some of the drivers do have more of a feel on the rain. They can, kind of maximize their grip coming out of corners, whereas other drivers might be a little bit timid. They don't want to loop the car around. So it all comes down to driver preference, and it will be interesting to see how this bodes, especially for the drivers up at the front. They've got a lot of pressure on their shoulders to make sure that they're clean and squeaky for the start of this race. A big pile up the front just causes chaos for the mid-pack. And I suppose that could be said for anyone in their current positions. Got to make sure that you can get the absolute best start coming out. You've got to give respect, got to give room where it needs to be given. If you've got a driver up on the inside that is alongside you can't just turn into the apex. So there's a lot of thought processes that drivers are thinking about coming into this, and at the end of it, they just want to get as many points as they can as well. So you've got to be respectful, but still not be too timid. If you are too timid coming into your approach, you are just going to bleed position. So 2 by 2, they start to line themselves up here, and this will be the start of our first 30-minute race. Of course, the GT4 Season 2 here at Racing Club International. My name is George Smith in the box with Sam Wright and, of course, Stewie on cams, and this is going to be an absolute cracker, lining themselves up towards the start-finish line. We're waiting for the green flags to indicate that we are go, go, go. Nito and Kansakau in that number 43 and 29 Porsche leading things away at the front of the grid. Carsten and Macaulay challenging from the second row. And slowly, they make their way down the pit straight. And we'll be waiting. There we go. Confirmation is there. Macaulay actually gets a great start in that KTM. We're going to go almost 4 wide coming into Tamburello. This is going to be an absolute cracker. Look at the drivers behind, all trying to see what they can do with this. A little tap coming in as well, as the drivers manage to hold themselves together. And it's Joe Macaulay going sideways on the exit of Tamburello. That KTM slides itself out, and he's now lost a hell of a lot of positions as the rest of the drivers all got a better run coming down towards Villeneuve. So not a great start coming out for the KTM. It looked like it was going to be good. He got a good start off the rolling run-in, but after that, a little tap coming down has caused a little bit of chaos. You can just see how many drivers here are trying to find some track position, and already we can see the fights, and there's a big pile up at the back of Tosa, and that is not going to be good for a lot of these drivers. Some unsafe rejoins perhaps coming in there for a couple of drivers, but up at the front, Alexander Carson and the likes of Nito, they're going to be looking at this and smiling, because this has created a big gap for them. Kansakau, he's also trying to still keep the other two. Oh, it's a big run coming out from Carsten here. He's gone alongside Nito, and this is exactly what he needed to do, but it is that tricky Variante Alta chicane that forces Carsten to tuck back in behind Nito. Here we get a little race replay of what happened in the middle, where we see a little bit of a turnaround coming down. That's one of the Triple R cars that's facing in the wrong direction. And that was one of perhaps many incidents that took place at the start, Sam.
We were expecting it at the start, and of course, I think that the biggest, I don't want to say loser, because there's still a race to go, but Macaulay drops right down. He's going to feel that, but don't worry, Macaulay, just hashtag blame Mike Jones. It's your first race. You got more to go, 11 more, but I'm pretty sure you've also got a good 28 minutes to get up there. But there's that replay again. Quite a few bumps. Well, what happened there, George?
Oh, I think, it's going to take a lot of race reviews and looks in to see exactly what happened, as we see a driver missing the turn-in point for the Tamburello chicane. He's going to be sent off onto the grass. But Sam, a couple of small, almost domino-like effect occurrences took place, and I think that put a couple of drivers in the wrong place. And then some unsafe rejoins, perhaps a little bit too anxious to get back on the circuit. That's going to cause a couple more drivers to come into a collision, and that's going to completely throw the results here for race 1 into the air, because a lot of drivers here were caught up with that towards the back of the pack. They do know that they've got a second race to attack with after this, but we've said it before, it's all about consistency. Up at the front though, Nito and Carsten, what a nice little knife fight they've had, the number 43 and 22. And it looks like Nito has managed to just keep himself ahead. He was side by side with Carsten for the opening lap, but it now looks like Carsten has slotted himself behind. He's going to just choose to follow Nito, maybe put a little bit of pressure onto the Porsche in front of him and try and force the error and then capitalize from there.
We've spoken about this before. You can see how close he is there. He has been up like that while we were busy looking at replays and watching other things. He's kept himself as close to the bumper of Nito's Porsche as he possibly can. And this is a really good strategy, I find, from drivers, because it does put the pressure. If you're driving up in the front there, you want to be looking ahead, not in your rearview mirror. When you've got someone that close to you, of course, you're going to be keeping your eyes on the back. Just taking another little look at this replay here around that turn. You can see a little bit uncomfortable for some of these drivers.
Yeah, Doman Siwa there just looping it around out through Alta, and I think he did a good job, kind of just hold the brakes, but his car's nose was a little bit in the way of other drivers trying to get past, and he's caught up with someone. So I guess in those situations, it's not always about just parking and holding on to the brakes, but also just, backing it up like a fire truck if you need to, and just moving away from the racing line. It's Fensick and Cassis, they're having a little battle out there. Wig, Bryant, all in the mix as well, looking to capitalize at the same time. Cassis in that Camaro is going to be just ahead then of Svensic, who has the pressure of Wig in that Audi behind, and then Bryant in the Triple R BMW, that number 42, he's chasing down, and then it's two Astons behind as well. So here we get a little replay. We see Diego Paul Frimbres coming into contact again there with another driver, and unfortunately there you kind of just forced off of the race circuit. You're then picking up the sand, and that's going to be impacting your drive out.
A little bit of a nudge, and Sickle jumping back into those two races right at the front, fighting it out. Carsten from Excel Racing, he is right up there with Nito. He does not want to let this one go. We spoke about putting the pressure on. I think it's less about putting pressure on and now more just trying to find his gap so he can make his move.
Absolutely. I mean, Nito is under pressure here. They know that if the two of them fight it out side by side, they are going to lose time, and that's going to allow Ruben Consacao in third place to catch up to them. They've got a good advantage here, and they need to stay with it.
We're watching another replay now. Rubler, you can take a look here as the overhead goes.
So I think there, Rubler was one of the cars that came over and caused an impact there as well. So it's a little bit dangerous out here at Imola. We predicted that the rain would add some variability into it, and it's certainly being a bit of a struggle for the mid-pack. But up at the front here, Carsten and Nito, they're having a lovely little scrap. We called it a knife fight earlier out. It's now turned into a full-on samurai sword battle, as Nito still does a good job of just holding Carsten at bay. We think that perhaps Carsten is trying to force the error onto Nito, but at the same time, he's looking like he wants to try and make a move if the opportunity arises. And it's just a great drive coming out from the Phoenix Racing number 43. As we go onto that rear-facing splitter cam, we can see a grill full of that number 22. Carsten keeping that pressure on, not allowing Nito to run away with things. And that's what you want up at the front in the first race of our 30-minute sprint race challenge tonight.
Tons of fun. We're just going to watch another replay, but while we're doing that, the Phoenix Racing guys have got to be shouting right now, watching here, because as much as we're looking at that first and second battle, there's a battle in third and fourth as well. 3 of those Phoenix Racing cars up in the top 4, and you can see them all fighting it out. Third and fourth a little bit off the pace of Nito and Carsten. But Lima and Consacao, they're also out there trying to battle it out. So this is going to be really interesting, because as much as Carsten's out there putting pressure on Nito, the teammates are behind us. He's stuck in the Portuguese lion's den, but doesn't seem to be worrying too much. Just wants to get in front so he can run away from them maybe.
Absolutely, and you see a couple of drivers having to come into the pits then, and one of those, Thiago Lima. So some damage picked up. Helicalio, is he going to have a look on Conway as they come down into Tamburello? I don't think he is quite in the position to have it, but Helicalio keeping that pressure onto the back of Conway as they try to together hold up and catch up to Ertan in that number 14 BMW, who's sitting in 8th place. So lots of pressure coming out. The battle of the manufacturers for sure. Joe McCauley going to be featured here in this race replay. We saw that he was doing, did he have a little bit of a contact there with the Aston? I think maybe just the rear end, maybe. The tree was kind of in the way of what our cameraman was trying to show us, but I think that Joe McCauley trying to make his way back up through the grid. We saw him at the start get sent off. That made him bleed a lot of positions, and from 3rd place he fell all the way down the order. Currently sitting in 21st place is Joe McCauley. Carsten and Nito, though, they are continuing to make sure that we have to keep switching back to what is happening up at the front. A great drive coming out from both drivers at the moment. I mean, Nito not cracking under pressure, and Carsten is doing a great job at just keeping him honest through and through, and it feels like they're still pulling a gap out to P3. So these guys are certainly pushing it and enjoying the slightly wet conditions. Big mistake from the number 43. Carsten now sees a small gap, goes for the inside line. Nito wants to come across the apex, too late to do so, and a great pass comes through.
We said it was going to happen. Carsten's just needed to spend some time there putting the pressure on. Which I think is what's starting to happen. Gave him the chance to take over there. Now he gets to watch Martin Lawrence. Of course, he was the third place for season 1. He's in 7th place, making a move now on Crozen, who's in 6th as they come into this open stretch here where he can just put his foot down a little bit.
Again, just struggling a little bit with some track limits there, and that's going to allow Martin Lawrence to get that move, a little bit more secured. Always got to make sure that you keep it on at the tar. Most grip is found out there. If you go into the sand pits, you are going to find yourself slightly slower, and that was a BMW in the background looping it round as we see that the grip is starting to fall down. Harry Conway, he's now gotten, Helicalio in front of him. So Helicalio has gotten through, and Helicalio now putting pressure onto the back of Ertan in that number 14 BMW.
While you're looking at all of this, just to let you know, if you haven't been keeping an eye out there, Octane's been able to push himself into 4th place, Garland in 5th, Lawrence in 6th. So that's going to be really nice for them. Consecaldo sitting in 3rd, and of course Carsten's now taking the lead, but we are on track with Ertan. There we go. You can see him taking a look behind him at Helicalio and Conway as they chase him. This mid-pack, very, very tight, very close.
It's incredible to see drivers putting it to this sort of limits in these kind of conditions and keeping it neat and tidy. We know that there have been a couple of incidents that have taken place that could have been predicted when we saw the rain coming down, but the track indicating that it is just damp. Fabian Schmidberger going to be featured up here as we see an overtake being done coming out of Tosa, perhaps. Brilliant bit of driving. Looked like a slight bit of contact between the two, but rubbing is racing.
And so many things that have happened, and as I say that, here we go, another little one for you to look at. Schmidberger just taking a quick detour. I wanted to maybe go pick up some burgers. I've done that too. I've driven past a burger joint and done that quick wheel turn to the left, but now he's back on track.
Just as we think that Fabs had maybe a good little overtake maneuver coming out, a little bit of misfortune comes down. I blame the fact that Fabian has gone with number 68 instead of 69. 68 instead of 69.
68 instead of 69, that's your fault. So there you go. Now Helicalio, this is quite an interesting little dynamic that's happening here. 8th, 9th, 10th. Ertan, Helicalio, Conway, quite close. Lots of battles going on. A couple of overtakes as well. Some of the, when I say overtakes, some attempted overtakes as this pack is kind of grouped together and fighting it out, George.
Yeah, I mean, just a couple of tenths between them. Conway now getting a good run onto Ertan. They are making their way up to the next left-hander, which means that where's Conway going to go? Oh, he's going to send it up onto the inside. Nice little switchback coming out there from Harry Conway. Beautiful driving coming out from the Triple R team. And Ertan in that number 14 is going to feel a little bit robbed. And it looks like he's got a bit of a Maserati problem coming up from behind. That's probably the front running Maserati, that number 36, but Harry Conway, that was certainly the way to duck and dive around into Ravazza and gets himself up into P9 as Ertan then is forced to start to deal with Powell in that 36 Maserati behind. And just a little side note of that, there's no traction control on that Maserati. That thing must be an absolute mad machine in the wet, and he's got to run, going to go side by side, going to actually slot himself ahead of Ertan. So great bit of driving coming out. The Forza Italia esports team just showing us how it's done. Phil Roberts in the Ginetta. He's having a nice little battle there with Courier in the number 977 Aston Martin. The colors on that Aston Martin, certainly what you would want to be driving in less than ideal visibility conditions.
For sure. Now we're moving on to Alan Garland sitting in 5th place. Look at this battle it out here. He is making a move on Octane and well, it's Lawrence and him at the back there, Octane just in the front. A little bit of a bump and tickle there, but they keep battling it out. And as we come around, look at these cars. These are a group that I'd be a little bit worried about. I don't think Lawrence is going to be too happy about the fact that Garland is out in front of him. He's going to want to make a change there.
Oh, I think Garland also not just getting the best run out of that corner. That's going to impact him quite heavily. Billy Octane doing a good job here in P4 for Triple R. And he's got the pressure of Garland behind him. They know that Lawrence has maybe fallen off a little bit in that exit. He's going to be probably pressured out by the likes of Helicalio as Billy Octane goes into the pit box. So not quite sure what the McLaren needs to get done, but the number 33 now going to just bleed out positions as the rest of the field roars on past him. Helicalio going to stick to the back of Garland like glue as we see another Cayman in the sand doing some loop-de-loos.
Now the battle starts. We're moving to another replay for you, a chance to take a look at Iztok serve here. A little bit again, once again, a little bit of a bump and grind.
A little bit more than a bump and grind, a bump and send, and maybe have to pay for the mend as Serve does rejoin the circuit, but not after ping-ponging off the sidewalls of the circuit. Going to pick up some damage and probably impact the way that he now has to finish this race. 30 minutes to go. Guess it's a bit of a catch-22 on if you go into the pits now to repair damage, you are going to be impacted. But at the same time, you know, are you going to really gain or lose that much by staying out? If you can't keep the car on the circuit, you're going to lose out big time. So you're going to have to kind of just evaluate and see what happens from there. Lawrence here with Helicalio now behind him as they put the pressure onto Consacao. This has created a big gap for Carsten and Nito. They are now 9 seconds ahead of this little train here. And this little train here wants to get to the station and try and catch up to the leaders. But 12 minutes to go, quite a lot of time to try and make up unless they make some big mistakes. Phil Roberts in that Ginetta still on the back of that 977 Aston as they come through Q Minerali. And that Aston doing a good job at the moment to hold the Ginetta at bay. It's been a couple of laps that we've followed and seen them in this sort of formation. But Roberts trying to build up to the place that he can make a move. You can quite see the evidence of that dry line forming up. So those wet tires perhaps now starting to cook, as you see a lot of the drivers looking to go to the wet part of the circuit. Replay here as we go 3 wide, a little bit of tapping coming down. Cruisin again trying to see what he can get done. But plenty of drivers coming in to make that tire change, maybe to dry tires.
Interesting. Not 100% sure what the calls will be, but I mean, there's still 12 minutes in the race. So possibly now is the time if you want to make that change, George.
I mean, it's you're not going to get... Oh, there goes the Maserati of, again, into the same sort of section of Tamburello. We did say going too wide into there can be dangerous, and we can see exactly why. And that might actually be a retirement coming out for the number 36. Smashed into the wall quite hard and jumped back to the pit box. We'll have to see what transpires at the end of that. Roberts still trying to keep the pressure on to the back of Korea, as the 977 Aston puts a couple of car lengths between himself and the featured Ginetta of Phil Roberts.
If you take a look now, while you're watching Phil Roberts, I just want to let you know, if you haven't been watching the jumps up at the top, Martin Lawrence has claimed the third place. He's been able to move into that third position. Helikalio is in fourth, and Konsekal's dropped into fifth. So that's happening up at the top, but right now we're watching that number 74, Ponyo, driving around here. These guys at the bottom are going to be trying to just move their way up as fast as possible. 32 cars in this race. So not going to be an easy one to try and move. I suppose you want to move yourself up a little bit towards the end. Only 10 minutes to go here at Imola for race number 1. So you want to start putting the pace on a little bit to try and see if you can improve your position and finish a bit higher up.
Miroslav Konyo is definitely got his hands full trying to hold back the likes of Rubela, who has fallen off a little bit. But as we say that, Konyo onto the gravel, and that has created the opportunity now for that purple and black Audi to try and get a run. Going to be forced on the outside of Tosa, and he's on the wet part, touched a little bit of the grass, found a little bit of a whippersnapper before managing to get the car pointed in the right direction. He's then delayed on being able to apply the power, and that has allowed the number 74 to just secure the run as they come down into Ecu Minerali. Phil Roberts, our man in that Ginetta, still putting the pressure onto the back of the Aston Martin. And I said right at the start when the GT4 pack came out that I wasn't a big fan of the way that the Ginetta looked. But the more and more that I look at it, the more that I see maybe some varying paint jobs, I started to see that, maybe I am a little bit of a fan. Big mistake from the Audi or the Aston in front of him. And that's going to allow Phil Roberts to get an immediate run through. Brilliant bit of driving. Again, keep the pressure on and just scoop up the free positions when they're handed out.
Very excited about that because we were watching that for a while. He was just there, and I was starting to sing in my head to the Postman Pat tune, Can He Catch Him? And it turns out, actually, that's the Bob the Builder tune. Yes, he can. Now we get to watch Casas. He is fighting it out with Crigniglio, whose name I've just completely butchered, so I apologize completely for that one. And you can see them here as they keep going in that Chevy and BMW.
The number 10 trying to just keep that pressure on as we switch over to Raj Svensik. Race replay coming down. We'll see what happens here. I think it's just our overtake that we missed off camera coming down. Just got to have a nice little send. Got to have the confidence into Variante Alta. So just pick your line and you stick with it. Got to have trust and faith that you can use those curbs. And I think this is exactly what these drivers are trying to do here. Number 107, Juraj Svensik, just trying to get as many points in the into the point column of the championship here. And again, the Camaro putting the pressure on to the back of that number 88 BMW. And this is the time to really start to turn it up. If somebody's struggling for grip, struggling for tires, this is now where you need to make it count. 7 minutes 43 on the race clock remaining. And the rain, we predicted it would add a spanner to the works. It certainly has.
That's the thing, though. All these drivers would have been prepared. They know that the conditions can change. They know that the rain is a potential option. They should have known with the South African duo commentating that it was a definite. We're now moving back on board with Joe McCauley from #blame Mike Jones. He's moved up into 11th spot, considering the start that he had at the beginning of the race and how he dropped down. I think it's like 24th, 25th. This has been a really good comeback from him.
It has been a good comeback. We said that you need to have consistency, and even at the start, if you don't get it in there, there's certainly going to be a little bit of craziness out on the circuit. some info from our pit crew down in the pit box. They've relayed some info out here, just saying that the drivers that have gone into the pits have come out and not been driving quicker. So if they have made those tire changes, it hasn't benefited them in terms of raw lap time. So they would have lost out on having to go into the pits, as well as then not picking up time, or in losing time in this case, out on the circuit. So I think the call was to stay out on the wets, even though the track is drying up. We can see now conditions change from damp to greasy, and this is why you see so many drivers looking so squirrely. It is going to be Alexander Karsten up at the front, though. He's 4.1 seconds ahead of Nito, so perhaps Nito actually drove the tires off that Porsche, that number 43, but it is the 22, the orange, light blue, and is that a dark blue? Is that a dark black? I'm maybe going colorblind here, Sam. Dark blue? Purple?
I'm pretty sure that's a dark blue. I'm gonna call it and say dark
Navy blue.
Navy blue. There you go.
Look at us with our vocabulary.
And our fantastic understanding of colors. There we go. That's happening right now. Carsten's had a fantastic overtake of Nito's. He was chasing him for quite a while, and now up in that top position. He's just got to keep his cool. He's got to keep it up there and just keep driving a nice, smooth a race, because he's got 5 minutes left. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Nito's is about 3 seconds off his pace.
Oh, Rubelar kind of almost parking that car on the apex there. As does a good job to get out of the way of everybody else, but it looks like the number 17 has had to retire to the pit box. A couple of retirees coming into race 1. That's not what you want in the championship. You want to get as many points and finishes as you can. But Miguel Nito, the man who started in pole position, had a cracker lap in the dry for quali, has almost been bested out by the way that Karsten handled that race. He put the pressure on, he kept it there, he kept applying it, and once he's gotten past, he's just left Miguel Nito in the dust, so to speak. 4.5 seconds between the two of them. Juraj Svensik has also just had a great little race. He's been involved with a couple of cars. He's now having a battle out with the likes of Ertan. He can see Joe McCauley in his rearview mirror as well. And he knows that, in this position that he is, he needs to capitalize and get the run on the M4. And this is exactly what he's trying to do. Is he going to be able to go alongside? Joe McCauley wants to come through as well. And they will go 3 cars wide down the back stretch there as they make their way. It's not even the back stretch, coming down into the Villeneuve chicane. Great bit of driving coming out from both the likes of Svensik and McCauley, and it's Ertan that loses out hardcore there. 2 positions just robbed blind, as it sometimes goes that way. Korea in that 977 Aston, he's just also lost a little bit of pace there, has he? I'm not quite sure if Fabian Schmidberg are going to drive right through.
Taking a look at those times now, but can I just shout out McCauley, and we're about to go on board with him. What a race from this gent, considering the start. I mean, he was up there, I think, in the top 5, and then immediately just did not have a great start. Lots of bashes and bumps. I think he was off the track for a bit, pulled himself back in, climbed all the way back up, and now in the top 10. What a drive from him. So impressive. And now look at this, already on the back of Svenchik. He wants to get higher up, and he is just putting the pressure on this driver. And what an impressive, I'm just super impressed. He's kept his cool, he's got back up there, and this is the kind of driving I love to see.
He has indeed kept his cool, and just goes to show where he is one of the big flavors in the sim racing community. Doesn't always go well to start, but it's how it finishes that counts, and getting himself within that top 10 and within a shot of maybe getting himself into P8. Definitely keep an eye out on this battle towards at the end. The 107 of Svensik and the 18 of Joe McCauley. A nice manufacturer battle that you wouldn't have thought would come up, because not too many people picked the KTM crossbows, but Aston Martin versus KTM, I'm certainly going to approve. And so many Porsches within the top 10 as well. I want to say top 10, but it's really just the top 6, as we've got them in 1st, 2nd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. And this is the battle between 5th and 6th. Garland versus Consacao, as they come down towards what will be soon the very last couple of laps. Our leader, Carsten, he will be the man to set just how many are there. Maybe some of these drivers haven't predicted the fuel in their cars correctly, and that's why they've had to... we've seen some of those overtakes being done. Fabian Schmidberger and Lima getting past Courier in that 977 early on. Just starting to think maybe some of these drivers have to try and do a little bit of lift and coast because they haven't planned their fuel quite right.
We'll be... we won't know. We'll need to speak to them after the race, find out what happened. But we'll be speculating until then. We're back on with Joe McCauley here in his battle with Svenchek at the front there. Look at him go. He's got 1 minute of this race. And there you go. Look at this. He's going to try and take this. I mean, I know that the race is coming to an end now, but he isn't going to give up until he's got that 8 spots.
Yeah, Carsten just gets notification from our race director that he is going on to his final lap. So these drivers, once they come out through Ravatsa and over the line, they'll have one more lap to go. Can Joe McCauley get himself into P8? He certainly got himself into the draft. He will be sitting in the slip as they make their way down the start-finish straight. And this will be ultimate attack mode for that KTM crossbow. And, you know, gives me a little bit of a Batmobile looking vibe, and he now needs to turn up the pressure indeed. Nito, he's lost out to Martin Lawrence as we're going to get a race replay here. Martin Lawrence up on the inside there. Nito is going to come across, try and defend a little bit of argy-bargy as they go side by side, but it is Nito that loses out in terms of the run, and it will be Martin Lawrence to get through into P2. So Nito on the attack. Hilicalio on his back end almost immediately. You can just see how much that impacts you, not getting the run down on the straights where you need it. All about carrying momentum. And it is McCauley that gets past Fensick there. He has gotten the move done. Now he has to just hold on and defend it up to the line. The KTM crossbow gets past that number 107 Aston Martin, and a beautiful bit of driving coming on, but it's not done just yet. Into a Cube, Minerali. Does he go defensive? He does indeed. Closes the door and makes sure that Aston doesn't get room to look anywhere. Very wide goes Fensick. That's going to impact his run as well. And needs to be careful not to pick up too many track limit warnings. But over to our race leader and soon to be winner for race 1 here in the first 30-minute race. Alexander Carsten will go over the line to secure a first place in race 1, Sam.
Here we go. Martin Lawrence is probably going to cross over in second place as well. Not quite sure how it happened, but Hilicalio was able to take out Nito right at the end there, and he takes the third. We're now watching Alan Garland come on home. He'll probably be in fifth. And of course, our eyes are going to be on Mr. McCauley. Where is he going to finish in the bigger mix of things as all these cars come home? Konsakawa in sixth. He has crossed the line. Conway in seventh. And McCauley takes it in eighth. Svenchek in ninth, and a little bit of chaos as they all cross the finish.
Little bit of chaos, but what a top 10 finish coming out. Ryan Gill in his Alpine gets himself up into P11 as well. So big shout out to fellow broadcaster and commentator Ryan Gill in his triple R. It's not the Alpine, is it? It is the Alpine that goes over the line. So good job from Ryan Gill to get himself up into P11 for race 1. P12 goes to Weg Lima, takes home 13th. Roberts in 14th. Fabian Schmidberger in 15th. Korea in 16th. Octane will go over the line in 17th. He could have had a different race if he hadn't had to go into the pits as well, as Hasefoot will cross in 18th. Should be Smith and Cruzen to round out our top 20, and a complete mixture of manufacturers outside of the Porsches up at the front.
Quadriglio takes P21, Cassis in P22, and Bryant will probably come in for that triple R for P23. What a race, though. Right at the beginning, right at the end, a bunch in the middle. Really exciting, really fast. This was an impressive start to season 2 of the championship, without a doubt. I think there's a lot of players that have come in here, a lot of drivers who have made it very clear that we need to be keeping our eyes on them, because they were battling till the bitter end, George.
They really were. What a great little race that was indeed. And I like the fact that we had some damp conditions to add some insult to injury. Didn't go the way for a lot of drivers. We saw some chaos ensuing as drivers tried to push a little bit too hard in the wet and got caught up early in their train. And unfortunately for them, not a lot of time to try and make up positions from there. Joe McCauley did a great job though for a comeback drive. And I think hats off to Carsten for just staying behind Nito for so long in that race and then eventually applying the pressure and getting himself the race win. But Carsten, Lawrence, and Hilakalio, they'll be smiling from ear to ear to wrap up their podium positions for race 1. And you know what, Sam? The best part about this is that we reset, we go to race 2. Drivers have 3 minutes to prepare themselves again for what's about to come. And if I had my glasses on correctly there, I think outside the comms box, I saw the easing up of rain and some sunlight starting to come down. So maybe they're about to get a dry race too.
I did have a little run outside the box. The sun is coming out. I also had a chance to chat to one of our RCI racers, Bart Matcha, and he was pointing out how excited he was that BMW was up in the mix there with all the Porsches. So well done again to Martin Lawrence. And now we move into race number 2 because, of course, 6 race days, 12 races. The championship, the season will be decided by the driver who does the best across all of these races, is able to get points on the board and make themselves sit in that number 1 position. Consistency is key. So that's what they're going to be focusing on now. It's a complete reset, whole new race. Whatever happened earlier, it's done, it's finished. And now they get back on track. Same grid positions that we saw in race number 1, but they're going to start all over again in the sunshine. And hopefully some of them will be bettering those positions and some more points on the board for them.
I think for a lot of drivers, it is going to be the main focus for them is to look back and see that unfortunately they didn't have the best race start. Beautiful camera coming out here from the crowd. You can see all of the masks on, social distancing in place, as the drivers here all have a lovely view of the crowd, or the crowd has a lovely view of the grid, and a beautiful grid it is. GT4 madness coming down. Race 1 in the wet definitely started off a little bit chaotic. It did settle down after the dust cleared up, but at the end of the day, we saw mistakes being made from drivers all throughout the race, and that allowed a lot of those positional changes to take place before the checkered flag went down. Dry conditions, we can almost expect there will be less of those curveballs to be chucked in, but it's still a crazy racetrack to try and go side by side, especially in a grid of this size. So I think, Sam, we're still going to be in for a treat. Even if we don't get, that South African rain of our commentary curse coming down, I think we're still going to be in for a treat.
I definitely think we'll be in for a treat. And of course, I think despite some of the bumps and bashes that we saw in race number 1, most of these drivers did their utter best to do a clean race. And you saw there a lot of them just trying to get out of that drama. And I really liked some of the action we saw. And I'm excited now to see what happens on the dry track with the sunshine as we move into race number 2.
I'm also looking forward to what we see in race number 2. We said at the very start, consistency is key, and it's going to be no different here today to see that same level of consistency for race 2. Just going to make sure that you can survive the first couple of corners, the first couple of laps, and settle in as quick as possible, and then start to plan your moves. It's all about carrying momentum here at Imola. We saw how important it was, especially out through Tamburello and Villeneuve. There's just so many opportunities for you to bully the driver in front into making the mistake, picking the imperfect line, and then you set yourself up to go. So as we peel off for the start of our second race, drivers will be going on the their formation lap, getting the tires up to temperature, and then it's a second rolling start to kick off the second race of the start of season 2 here at RCI TV. Racing Club International, of course, in partnership with Race Department, AK Informatica, Raceface Speed Labs, and Sim Racing GP. You can go and check out our Discord channel if you want to join in with the racing. Hashtag Discord, exclamation Discord, exclamation socials, exclamation timings in the chat if you want to follow along with the timings, or get a hold of us on the social side or our Discord channel. My name is George Smith in the box here with Sam Wright. So good to be bringing you action on Racing Club International.
So good, so much fun as well. And this is just the perfect way to spend a Thursday night, watching some fast cars go around the track, lots of vroom vroom. And if you want more of this, like George said, make sure you're following Racing Club International across all their social media so you never miss out on any of the action. Phoenix Racing now, taking a look at them. Of course, they had those really great positions at the top of the grid as they move around here. The Portuguese team, I've seen that they've got a lot of fans as well hanging out in the chat, shouting for them and cheering for them. Definitely can be proud of this racing group. They put on a really good performance in race number 1, and I'm sure they're going to want to try and do the same in race number 2.
Absolutely. Always want to impress your fans. Always want to, do the best that you can. And a big shout out to all the viewers in the chat for participating, sharing the love, leaving some likes, subscribing to our channel. Thank you for making this all possible. It's always good to be out here broadcasting for you guys as we get a lovely little view from Alta, the chicane that isn't really a chicane if you just beeline it over the curbs, but a lovely little mixture of cars, some beautiful liveries, and some talented drivers making up the grid and making for some great racing here at Imola.
Some really great liveries. I've got like 3 or 4 now that are my favorites, which I'll be using for design inspiration. I love all the bright colors and the crazy mix in the field. And with this many cars in the field, it's so much fun as they come down here. It's just like a big unicorn rainbow.
A big unicorn rainbow, 2x2, as far as the eye can see, as Jesse Lee would say. Race number 2 of season 2 in the GT4 championship about to take place here at Imola. 30 minutes on the clock. We've got some dry conditions, track temperatures at 16 degrees C. Slight little breeze coming in as well, but not enough to impact any of the drivers. Track set to fast, and we're just waiting for the race director to give us that green flag. Nito and Consacao leading away. Joe McCauley and cruising again, chasing from the back of the second row on the grid. And green flags are a go. We're live for race number 2. And how will things fare up this time? Well, this time round, Joe McCauley does not want to get caught up in the incident that he was earlier on in this exact corner. And 2x2, we start to see our drivers slotting through. It's all about being able to carry the momentum into the next parts of the track, and a lot cleaner for a lot of the drivers. I see a couple of cars in the background sliding off and playing in the sandpit, but far less than what we saw at the start of our rainy race 1.
In the sandpit for race number 2. Race 1, everyone was in there tossing up some sand and building castles, so a little bit smoother for everyone involved. I see we are now on board with Alexander Karsten. He is up in that 3rd spot. He wasn't first very quickly, but there's been a bit of a juggle there. Consacao in 2nd. Nito back in that top spot, obviously coming off the top of the pole. But as I say that, I'm pretty sure Karsten's going to make a run for it here.
Karsten getting himself into the ideal position here. He's got a whole bunch of angry drivers behind him. They're going to be fighting it out themselves. And if he just plans it right, then he's not going to have to worry too much about what the other drivers are doing. It's actually Nito that is going to be running away from things. Karsten is also getting a good run here. So once again, we could see a little battle coming out between those two. Consacao and Joe McCauley are going to also enter into the mix. Keep an eye on that KTM crossbow. Had to fight from all the way down the order to get up into the top 10. And this time round, he's given himself a much better start to have a shot at trying to secure one of those podium positions in race number 2.
So why is it interesting? Because obviously in race number 1, before we do that, let's take a look at this replay now. The sandbox, seeing who went to go and have a little bit of a play in there. Tom Bryant was the one who went to build some castles, George.
That's exactly what that excursion was all about. And unfortunately, for some of these drivers, that's not going to be the way that they would have wanted to start the race in the dry. Thiago Lima, he's here to show that he's ready to party. And he's going to be taking it up against the likes of Joe McCauley early on. That's going to wrap up, or keep the likes of Macaulay from being able to progress too far. He's going to have to go defensive pretty soon if he wants to hold back that GT4 Cayman. And behind them, they've got Cruisin and Consacao also looking like they want to get involved in all of this. So it's all about timing and predicting where you need to be. You don't want to fight too early on. You lose out on the drivers in front of you. Sometimes it's better to just let them, have their say early on, not over defend and lose more time to drivers behind. But Joe Macaulay, he knows exactly what he's doing. He's going to be putting himself in the ideal position. Hilicalio and the likes of Garland also still here on the back end of Consacao, as we get to see, very close to the back end of Consacao's Alan Garland, almost just a screen full of blue as Garland goes up onto the outside then as they come down into the double left-hander, and he is going to make that move on the outside. Does he carry the momentum through? Manages to switch back to the inside apex, and a brilliant little move coming out from Alan Garland there.
We're watching Thiago Lima now. He was our season 1 champion. Didn't have such a great race at the start, but looks like he's making up for it here as you see him battling it out to try and move his way into contention for first and second. Crozet and Macaulay dropping into 4th and 5th, and now Lima is up in 3rd. They are very close though, and this is what we saw in race number 1 between position 1 and 2. That battle was really, really tight, but I think if Lima gets the space he wants, if he's able to move Archer, he may be able to, if he can keep it clean, to possibly start contending with Nito and Carsten as well. Crozet though and Macaulay right on his tail, so I think it's going to be a much closer one here. There is a lot of hungry drivers who can't ride off Garland or Consacao as well, and they are all in the mix. Look how close everyone is in that mid pack, all just looking for the space that they need to take a play on the top 4, top 5.
Oh, Billy Octane getting the drive out there on Ertan. Very nice exit coming out for the McLaren, and the Triple R gets that move done, gets himself up into P9. Martin Lawrence also looking to see if he can capitalize on this misfortune of Ertan in that number 14 BMW that we're currently looking at from the back of Billy Octane's 570S. And it's all about that, just making sure you're in the right place at the right time. You mentioned it, Sam. Look how close that train of GT4s is behind. One small mistake, and you can lose multiple positions in the the next couple of corners. It's all about momentum here and carrying that where you can. And if one mistake is made, one slip up, as Bryant and Conway go side by side, Bryant going to be on the outside of his teammate there, the 2 Triple R liveries, looking bold and dashing, but this could cost them big time to the likes of the Porsche and the Aston Martin behind. They need to be careful. They need to work together and not fight against one another. Tom Bryant now with the run on the inside down the start finish straight, going to put himself onto the inside for the Tamburello chicane, and Harry Conway going to give him that position. It looks like is going to give him that position, and he's now going to have his hands full of defense as Hasefuert in that number 20 Porsche and Courier in that 977 Aston Martin start to apply pressure to the bubblegum blue and pink cars in front.
There's been quite a shake-up up at the top as well, with Alan Garland falling into 6th place. Nito's still in 1st, but Consacao has moved himself into 2nd, Macaulay in 3rd, Crows in 4th, Lima in 5th. But we are sitting on board. Here's with Alan Garland. Not quite sure what happened there for him to drop all the way. Sorry, I'm mistaken. Garland is in 5th. I was thinking of someone else for a moment, but we'll change that back up. So we're now watching the replay here of what happened up at the front, George.
Yeah, Alan Garland just needs to keep his head down, keep focused. He's now going to follow on behind the KTM of Joe Macaulay, and just make sure that he gets his car to the finish line in one piece. Sometimes, it gets a little bit hair-raising out there, and you lose your cool. You don't have the right position to really take it to the drivers around you. But at this point, you've got a little bit of clean air behind, so Alan Garland won't be too upset about this. He's got Billy Octane closing down in that number 33 behind, but still 3.5 seconds down the road to that. He's got plenty of action in front. Flores Hasefuert there going to make the move then on the inside, as it looks like the likes of the number who was that they're going to go 3 cars wide regardless as they make their way down the start-finish straight. And in the background, you can just see how many of these GT4 drivers are putting themselves alongside. Beautiful bits of driving as well. Some space being given. You know where you need to be coming down into Tamburello. And it looks like Floris Hasevoorts is going to be putting pedal to the metal as they try and chase down. That's the Alpine of Ryan Gill behind. That's also trying to get involved in all of this. Looking at Tom Bryant, as we see in the background, that was Courier in that 977 Aston Martin going off track. The 2 Triple R cars, we said they can't fight it out. They haven't fought it out. They've been driving masterfully together, and they keep themselves in this position, and it's a very good position to be. Almost into the top 10 as well. Gotta just make your way through the order. Svensik on the back of Hasevoorts, and then we've got Ryan Gill chasing down there as well. Gill finishing P11 in the last race, currently in P21. So plenty of positions for him to make up as well if he wants to try and score as many of the points as possible.
If you are keeping your eye on some of the favorites in the race, may I suggest you don't. Just watch the track because it's changing all the time at drastic speed. All of these cars are so close together, hotly contested, far more than what we saw at this time in race number 1. Everyone is battling it out, and it's pretty chaotic. I'm presuming this is what it's going to look like when the world announces that we're allowed outside and COVID is gone. This will be everyone running out to socialize. This is probably what it's going to look like, George.
Oh, Rubila, what a nice little move coming in there to take the inside line of Consacao. I think that's a very good way of looking at it. It's complete chaos. It's manic, and the drivers are changing positions through and through. Bryant is going to try and get a run here as well. He's gone alongside Consacao. Consacao going to be on the inside for Tamburello. Is later on the brakes. So many cars involved in this, and Bryant just sends it up the inside. Beautiful bit of driving. Almost loops it around, loses the back end. That's going to cost him a lot in terms of straight line speed, but he's put his car in the right place as they come up to Villeneuve. Oh, that was very close to being a contact as well, but well kept from all the drivers. A little bit of a nudge there from Harry Conway. He decides that the best way to deal with Rubila is to give him a friendly little nudge. He goes off circuit there, plays in the sand, and we said before, when you're driving in the sand traps and the gravel traps, you just lose so much momentum and speed, and of course dirty tires then need to be cleaned off, and it takes a little bit of a couple of corners before you're back on the ability to push to the same limits as the drivers around you.
Just to show you the level of chaos that we're dealing with, Rubla has just dropped all the way down to 20th position. That's going to be a huge knock for him. We're now moving on board with Hasevoort. This is, I don't want to say chaos because I think there's some really good driving, and I always, when I say chaos, I presume bad driving. Everyone here is driving very well. It's hotly contested, and because of that, everyone is very close together. Everyone is constantly dueling one another. We mentioned the samurai swords in race number 1. I feel like everyone here has a lightsaber and is trying to get a hit in.
It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy out here, and it's great bits of driving coming out from all the drivers on the grid. Mostly respectful. We see a little bit of rubbing is racing. I'm sure that there will be some words spoken between drivers at the end of it, but you know what? That's how it is. You're all good mates outside of the racing circuit, but on the racetrack it just becomes knives out as we see that Maserati this time around trying to have a better race. We saw him putting it into the wall, not at his own fault in the rain, and had to retire from the race. But the Forza Italia PL esports team trying to get up into the top 10, and they do so indeed. So currently the number 36 defending against the likes of Cassis and Martin Lawrence. So difficult place to hold off, as we see Lawrence with a nice little run as well. He's gone past Casas as he is in the slip of the Maserati, knowing that the Maserati can't push to the same limits that you can with the cars with traction control. I feel like Martin Lawrence will be putting that pressure on in extra large doses as we watch the 171 do a nice little follow procedure. It's all about timing, and positioning. And with 17 minutes to go, it's not a place that you really need to worry too much about getting a move done. Just keep applying pressure until the car in front folds. And if that doesn't work, then you're really going to have to pull out something special.
Martin Lawrence was in a similar position in race number 1. He was able to finish in second place. This is something he's really good at. We've seen him before, middle of the pack, push it right on up. So I think that he's probably primed for where he wants to be 17 minutes in. But we're now moving over to Svenček. And you can see here, as I say that, Svenček says, no, I'm a little bit shy. I don't want you to talk about us right now.
Or a little bit of a bold move up onto the inside. Don't think he was going to slow that car enough to take the inside apex. And unfortunately coming into a collision and looping himself around. That then costs him quite a couple of positions. So, it's all about the bravery. You think you're going to make up a position and you end up losing 3 or 4. So it's not even a catch-22. It's so much better to rather look for a safe place to make a move. And unfortunately, it doesn't always work out that way. People are going to be pushing it to the limits. People are be trying to improve. We saw how chaotic race 1 was in the rain, and that made for a few upsets to a lot of these drivers' positions. So race 2 here, for a lot of people, is all about getting some points on the board, Sam.
It is about points on the board, but it also is 6 race days, 12 races. So there is time. If you don't have a good first race day, you've got a week to head on home, to put some practice in, to figure out what it is you want to do before we head to Germany next week. So it's not all doom and gloom, but of course, if you can get some early points, it's always going to make it a little bit easier because it allows you to have that small little gap for error later on. Now on board with Consecao, he was quite high up early on. He's dropped quite a few positions now, sitting in 18th. From that Phoenix Racing team, you've seen quite a few of their races up at the top, battling it out. And Korea is right on his back, chasing him up. He's got to be well aware. Ryan Gill's there as well. This group of cars is going to be a little bit scary, and you can see here Consecao knows he's got to make as much distance between himself and them as possible.
Oh, I love the fact that Ryan Gill and Fabian Schmidberger are on track battling it out for positions. Of course, Ryan Gill in that triple R number 23, and Fabian Schmidberger, his team livery reads triple R wannabe. So maybe wants to try and show Ryan who deserves to be where. But at the moment, a nice little battle between some good mates. Originally, when I got into commentary, these were the 2 boys that were out there representing on the commentary side. And, Fabian does a lot of good things for RCI. Of course, Ryan doing the same. And good to see both them entering into events and being able to drive more. I know that's where the passion lies. So very cool to see.
It's always exciting because you know what they sound like. You've heard their voices, and now you get to see them drive. We're moving up into that number 1 car, Miguel Nito from Phoenix Racing. He's having a fantastic race. He isn't as contested as I thought he'd be, so he'll be feeling really good about that. 14 minutes, so still, halfway really. He's got to keep this up and keep doing that. Carson's in second place, and Thiago Lima, season 1 champion, sitting in 3rd as well, possibly in a position to podium if he can keep it up and he can keep the pressure on. Now for these top 3 cars, I think it's really just battling it out with one another, but also just making sure that you can keep running a clean race.
It's very important to keep up with the same sort of pace that you had at the start. I feel like for Nito, this is exactly what he needed. I mean, let's be honest. We saw the pace coming out in quali. He looked like the fastest car on the grid. He didn't seem to favor the wet conditions, but race 2 showing the sunshine out here, it is certainly working in his favor. 16 degrees on track temperature, so not going to be eating through their tire sets. And for these 30-minute races, that should be perfect to have a flat-out sprint till the very end. Ryan keeping that pressure on here. He's got Consecao in his sights, and that little Alpine looking very small in comparison to the rest of the cars. It does look like the smallest car on the grid. It is one of the smaller body-shaped cars, and it's good to see the Alpine up here and being represented. I don't think there are too many others on the grid. I think his might be the lone representation of that. So right now, fighting up against that 29 Porsche. We've seen how dominant the Porsches have been. here in Imola, especially during free practice. We saw it in qualifying. We saw it in race 1. Lots of pressure coming out. Lots of potential for those Porsches. So always good to see some good competition for the manufacturers out here. Wig is also keeping that pressure on to the back end as Fensick in that 107 Aston Martin. 3 Aston Martins actually in front of the Audi here. He's got Pimlott, McLaughlin and Svensick all in front of him. But a whole train, a whole host of cars as we see Quadrigo trying to see Giacomo trying to see if he can have something against Harry Conway here. This is the battle for P14 that Conway holds on. He's following his teammate Bryant, who's sitting in P13 in that BMW. And plenty still to come. Good to see the pace of the Aston Martin keeping up with the BMWs here, as it will be Giacomo in that number 88 to keep applying pressure onto the back of Harry.
I know we don't focus on the back end that much, but Wig, that Audi, you saw him in car 49. We saw him a little bit earlier. George mentioned him. He did have a fantastic race in race 1, but he's also done really well here, because towards the start of the race, he was down in sort of 30th, 29th. He's moved himself up into 25th. It's always an interesting one to watch. Those drivers right at the back, maybe we don't give them nearly enough attention, because when they do performances like that, it means that they really are driving with their heart and soul. But we're now on board with that BMW 88, this close little contested pack. But you can see there, as I say that,
I love the way that Harry Conway approached that. He knew that Quadriglio didn't have any way to go. He knew that if he just held his line, that Quadriglio wouldn't have the ability to take the angle of that corner the way that he was trying to enter it, and that's forced him to run wide. That's given Harry Conway 3 or 4 car lengths and let him back it up into the likes of, the drivers behind will now be looking at that. Rubila will see that the car in front has lost some time, especially at that part of the circuit, and it's going to be very costly indeed. Helicalio is trying to do something here on the back of Ayrton, but so many close battles across the whole field, Sam, like you were saying, all the way down even to P25, P26.
And it is a short little, when I say short little race, it's 30 minutes, but it's quite short. So it means that you can't really stop with these battles. There's no time to take a breath. This track as well doesn't really allow it. So you need to constantly be fully focused, fully aware of what is happening around you. You can see here we're watching these 2 drivers battle it out as well, just trying to find the spaces that they're looking for. Helicalio is driving phenomenally well in that 8th position. He knows exactly what he wants to do, and that is take over from Ertan, move himself 1 spot up in the standings.
Absolutely. Every point counts. Every position that you can get counts. And knowing that you've got 2 races every week for the next 6 weeks means that you need to make sure that you get those points on the board. Here's that little Aston Martin battle that we were talking about earlier. Pimlott, Svensick and McLaughlin all in a little train with one another. They're behind the likes of Conyo in that Porsche, but it looks like Svensick in the slip of Pimlott coming down to Tamburello. Is he going to be able to look now? No, he doesn't. Actually overslows the car there and allows McLaughlin to get a little bit closer, but Pimlott with a mistake in the mid sector of that. He's also run wide. This is going to allow Svensick once again to get a run on the inside as they come down to Villeneuve.
Don't forget, you can, of course, check the timings, ! timings in the chat. But if you do want a quick update, Miguel Nieto is driving the race of his life. He is so far ahead of 2nd and 3rd. Carsten's still in that 2nd spot, but Thiago Lima is slowly starting to close the gap. The real action, though, is happening in the mid-pack, sitting here in the mid to back pack, if you like, because it is so congested. The fights are happening. You can see this here now with Pimlott driving really well. They're taking that wider turn. I think it worked quite well for him.
There is so much action going on across the order. We talked about Wig earlier. Wig now getting onto the back end of that Aston Martin train as well. Pimlott, McLaughlin all costing themselves a little bit of time. That's allowed this number 49 Audi to get himself closer and closer. The number 49 can almost smell a couple of positional changes up ahead, and with 7 minutes 30 on the clock. This is now where you do have to start turning it up a notch. You do have to start putting your best foot forward, and you have to make sure that you are applying the best laps that you can. At the start, you've always got a little bit of time to recover if you need it, but at this stage of the race, the track is well gripped up. There's a lot of focus that everybody else has been putting in, and if you have a momentary lapse in judgment, a position will go. Courier then goes past Ryan Gill, and that will be sending Ryan down into P20 as P19 gets switched around. Fabian Schmidberger, he's gotten past Ryan Gill as well, as it looks like perhaps Ryan had a small incident that put him in that position. Quadriglio, he's on the back end of Bryant, so he's also on the charge, as it looks like Harry Conway in front of both of them then, as the Aston Martin now leads ahead of the two BMWs, the 42 of his team mates, and Quadriglio in that bright green and black livery, number 88, and behind them Rubelar in that purple and black Audi, also looking to see if he can get involved in this. Any sort of time that you're battling with a car on track, you're costing yourself, in a nice run coming out from Guacamo as they make the run up to Variante Alta.
I do love this battle. Conway, Bryans, Quadriglio, Rublar. We've seen them the whole way through. And as I say that, not exactly what we wanted to see. I think it might have been, if I'm not mistaken, Quadriglio just tapping Bryant there. Did you have a chance to see what happened there, George?
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of a tap coming out. We've got a race replay coming down to just show us exactly what happened. A little bit of curb being used. Oh, it was Quadriglio that came in. A little bit of a nudge, a send back, and looks like Bryant will be able to return back to the racing line, but will have lost out those positions. And with 5 minutes to go, it's hard to say that a recovery can always be made. Billy Octane has the pressure of Martin Lawrence from the Connection Loss Racing team behind, and as we know, a veteran racer, Martin Lawrence, will be able to turn up that heat that we talked about. 5 minutes on the clock, the 171 verse, the number 33 McLaren in front. This is going to be a definite knife fight to see, both of them within the top 10, so it's certainly a nicer place. But if you can drop a digit and you can finish 9th, it feels like you've had a small victory.
I do think with less than 5 minutes to go, that's going to be on everyone's mind now, right? Is we need to drop. I need to get myself up one more spot. Whether you're dropping to 1 digit or still staying in the double digits, you want to kind of move up as much as you can. We're watching Ryan Gill here now. And you can see there he's dropped right down, 2 positions dropped, which is going to be a little bit frustrating for him. As much as I was talking about how you want to change positions, not in that way. You want to stay up. Martin Lawrence now making a play on Octane. And if you are looking to see where the leaders are sitting currently, Neto is still flying, doing a really good job. Carsten's in second and Thiago Lima in third. So they look like they're running a clean race and they can probably stick it out. Lawrence was, of course, second place in race number 1. I don't think he'll be too happy with sitting in 10th with less than 4 minutes to go. He's going to want to be up in those single digits. George, he's going to want to finish higher.
I think for a lot of the drivers here, it's been a little bit of a race of attrition, knowing that the dry conditions were probably the most favorable for them to have the best races, but that means that everybody else has the exact same thing on their plate and the same advantage going into their court. Lawrence still putting that pressure on to the back of Billy Octane. Octane having one of the coolest real-life surnames in sim racing. I mean, his parents are just way too cool. You couldn't have called it any better, having a surname like Octane and being involved in the sim racing scene. But he's certainly got a lot to live up to and needs to make sure that he keeps at bay that pestering P10 of Martin Lawrence. Looking at Fabian Schmidberger, he's got, or Konsekau now, he's got Fabian Schmidberger all over his back end, and then they've got Courier in that 977 also putting some pressure on. A little bit of a slip coming out there from Schmidberger in the background. We saw the back end of his Audi stepping out just slightly. Isn't going to be enough as, Courier, he just loses out of position there to Conyor in that Porsche in front. So just like that, small little change up as Conyor puts himself between Schmidberger and Courier, and behind them Svensik looking to get involved with it. Very wide goes Svensik outside of the track limits indeed, as Marco Courier in that 977. Our focus point here at the moment makes the chase on the back end of that number 74 Porsche, and they chase 68 of Fabian Schmidberger in that Audi. Beautiful view from the back wing, gang, as we see a lovely view of a train of GT4s behind.
That is a lovely view, and this is the time where you're going to see those little slips, those little mistakes start happening. Everyone here, I spoke about this grouping earlier on. They have been hotly contesting one another the whole way through the race. It is that final 2 minutes now where the pressure is on, where it is really important for you to run a good race, to move up a position. And when that pressure is on and you've got all these cars together and everyone is pushing for the same thing, those little mistakes do happen. Martin Lawrence now sitting in that 10th spot. And if you want a quick update of what's happening at the top of the leaderboards, Miguel Nito still sitting in the top, Carsten's in second, and Thiago Lima in third. So basically nothing's changed. And Lawrence still sitting in 10th, just unable to catch Octane. And he's probably saying to himself, faster, faster, faster. That's a completely different game reference, George.
You know, it's been a crazy race for Neto at the top. I mean, he's just been gapping it. He's 11 seconds ahead of second place Carsten, so they haven't had too much of a focus point. But what has been interesting to see is that mid pack. We've seen the front pack, you know, outside of the top 5 also just having a fight, as so many drivers just trying to find a way through. It is the likes of Ryan Gill in the background of the shot, Svensik ahead, but behind him, Konyo in that Porsche with Ryan Gill right behind him, trying to hold off the likes of Courier in that bright green and red Aston Martin. And it's all about these finishing positions coming into it. McLaughlin, he is currently trying to see if he can get past Wig, who has made his way into P23. So when we had that little update of Wig, at one stage, he was in P25. He's made up 2 positions to get himself into P23. But it looks like McLaughlin doesn't want to accept that.
McLaughlin definitely doesn't want to accept that. No one wants to accept the position they're in now. There's still 14 seconds left. There's still a chance. Some final laps. You've got to make a difference. So he's going to be chasing Wig as much as possible. But well done to Wig in that Audi. Moving up into 23, possibly being able to stick it out. As I said, let's move to Martin Lawrence.
Oh, Macaulay.
10th position.
Macaulay got a drive-through penalty in P6. That's going to be massive. That's track limits, Sam. He's exceeded track limits and got himself a drive-through penalty in P6.
He's not going to be very happy with that, especially now as they're moving into, this is the end, right? You're going to be finishing up. This is going to be frustration for him. It is also going to open the gates for everyone else. Everyone else possibly will be able to find themselves in a better position, and they're going to be pretty excited about that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you get a big penalty if you're not able to serve a drive-through penalty. Because it's the last lap, you're unable to go into the pit box to serve it. So you get about 80 seconds, I think it is, which is, you know, minutes and 20 on the clock. So to be honest, that could be a big change up for the KTM. We'll have to see where they finish up. Billy Octane still trying to hold off Martin Lawrence till the very end. The 171 keeps the pressure on as the battle between the BMW and the McLaren continues. Billy Octane tries to hold off, needs to just hold off for the rest of this lap. Svensik also having a battle of his own there. That would be Fabian Schmidberger. It looks like he actually got past Fabian Schmidberger there as, in the background, I see Ryan Gill facing the wrong direction in his Alpine. And we see the likes of the Aston Martin, what was his name in the background? Korea? That is facing the wrong direction. Nato will take home the victory for race number 2. Carsten finishes second. Thiago Lima in third. Crozen takes home fourth. Garland fifth. Macaulay gets a 30-second penalty added onto the end of his finishing position. He'll finish in P6. Ertan finishes in 7th. As we switch back then to that battle, Schmidberger on the back of Svensik, wanting to get that position back. Final time to try and have that attempt as they exit out of Ravazza for the final time tonight in race 2. And they chase it down to the line. It will not be the position that Schmidberger would have wanted to get back. But here is the race replay that we see Billy Octane and the likes of Lawrence. A little tap coming down as it's not going to be anything too upsetting. I think Lawrence also just lifted off there to give that position back over. But Ryan Gill, he coming in, there's the tap, there's, it was a big send then coming in from the likes of Courier, and unfortunately tapped in, and that's going to affect where Ryan Gill finished up. But for race results, I mean, that was absolutely fantastic coming out into race two. Nito, Carsten, and Lima take home the podium position spots. Crozen, Garland, Ayrton, Helicalio, Octane, Lawrence, all down to P9. Jarosbowski wraps up the top 10, Sam.
That is your top 10. The one to watch in the back there, Wig obviously finishing in 21st. I think he was down in 30th when that race started, so impressive performance from him. Martin Lawrence in 10th wasn't able to take over Octane, and then Jarosbowski, Kazaz, Harry Conway, Rublia, Bryant, and then Konsikar wrapping up your top 50.
Oh, what a great race coming in for the second part of the two-race series that we do now every Thursday night for the next 6 weeks. Sam, that was Imola done and dusted. What a great race it was. We had a little bit of wet conditions for the first race. I mean, slightly damp, going dry and greasy. And then we had some sunshine for the second race. So drivers getting pushed to the absolute limits.
Fun for me as a new commentator, a GT4 championship. That was insane. I did not expect that much action jam-packed into 2 races non-stop. And you have that saying down to the wire, but we got to see it down to the wire in both races. What a lot of fun.
What a lot of fun. And to you guys in the chat, thank you very much for joining us for the start of our season 2 of the GT4 Championship. We will be back again for some more GT4 action on Thursday. We'll be back for some Porsche Cup action on Monday as well. So plenty of race action taking place. My name is George Smith. I was joined tonight by Sam Tickle right in the box, and of course broadcasting being done by Stree. We are Racing Club International. If you do like what we do, follow us on all of our social medias. Keep up to date with what we do. Racing Club International in partnership with Race Department, AK Informatica, Raceface Speed Labs, and Sim Racing GP. We wish you a good evening and hope there's plenty of race action for you later.